Okay, let's unpack this. We are going deep into some fascinating, maybe even impossible territory today.
We really are.
We're looking at two linked sources, the Catalogue of Unstable Encyclopedias and then the margin birds. And this isn't just, literary analysis. It feels more like intellectual cryptography.
It does. And
It's
what's so fascinating here is that the material really forces you to confront these fundamental questions about knowledge itself.
right.
So our mission for this deep dive is to explore what's called ontological instability. Now, that sounds heavy, I know,
A little bit.
but it just means that the very act of looking for knowledge fundamentally changes the knowledge you're looking for. We're talking about texts that are alive, libraries that defy physics, and readers who literally become the books they read.
I love that framing. It turns the whole search for information into this paradoxical transaction.
Yeah.
And our two sources are like these contrasting mirrors. The first one, it explores paradox on a cosmic scale.
Infinite regress, systems that defy all logic.
Exactly. And the second, the margin birds, it grounds that exact same principle in something so much more intimate. The residue of human incompletion, the gaps, the silences, and the meaning we can find in what's left unfinished.
And to start at the source of all this impossibility, we have to begin with Dr. Venn. He was at the Tbilisi Institute for Bibliographic Anomalies.
Okay.
And he pioneered this field he called negative bibliography.
Negative bibliography, that sounds less like a field of study and more like a riddle. If bibliography is the study of books, what on earth is negative bibliography?
It's the study of books that should exist but don't, or books that can't exist but somehow do, at least for a moment.
Yeah.
And maybe most importantly, books whose very existence is just undecidable.
Like trying to verify the color of a shadow.
Precisely. It's the literature of the void.
Yeah.
And it was through this work that Dr. Ashray found the Ouroborian Codex.
Right, the Codex. And this was not delivered by your standard mail service. It was found in 1987, authored by 17 people who were already dead, and it was supposedly recovered from a library that will exist.
The timing alone is a paradox.
Is.
And that paradox is the entire point. The Codex was composed by something called the Unstable Academy, an institution that, by definition, only existed when it was not being observed.
It's like intellectual dark matter.
Exactly. And that instability just seeped right into the text itself. The number of entries in the Codex would literally fluctuate based on whether future readers were counted as fixed or probabilistic entities.
Wait, hold on. The book's contents change based on whether people who haven't even read it yet might read it. That's not an encyclopedia. That's a logic bomb designed to melt your brain.
It's inherently dynamic, and its physical location was just as unstable. The Library of Forking Catalogs.
Located in the city of Mobiana, a city that appears on no map.
Although its absence has been very carefully cataloged.
Let's try to visualize this library for a second, because the architecture is just so key to understanding the philosophy here. The sources describe it as a structure whose interior volume is bigger than its exterior.
And it varies. The factor changes depending on which wing you're measuring.
And the craziest part, its exterior does not technically exist.
Which brings up a very practical question. How do you walk into a building whose outside isn't there?
Right, you can't put a plaque on it, there's no door. I just imagine the city surveyors trying to have a zoning meeting about the building's shadow, which apparently is measurable.
The library just sort of resolves this by being conceptually infinite. The collection holds every book that has been written, will be written, could be written.
And even books that cannot be written.
And this is the key. Books whose existence depends only on whether they are currently being read. It's a total library of potential.
And into this impossible spacewalks the scholar Casimir Null looking for the Codex. And I love how the library proves its own point the second he arrives.
Oh, absolutely. His arrival is the key illustration of the library's strange chronology. The librarian, who has tiny scrolling text in her eyes.
Of course she does.
She doesn't just check him in. She tells him his arrival is already cataloged. It's shelved under paradoxes, self-fulfilling, subsection bibliographic, subsection readers who are also read.
So the library was anticipating him across time. His entry and his arrival were the same event.
Exactly.
Okay, so this is where we get to that core identity shift. Casimir Null wasn't just any visitor. The sources call him a null-class reader. That's a heavy title. What does it actually mean?
Well, it gets us back to that ontological shift. You have your casual reader who, consumes books, and you have the professional reader who is often consumed by their books.
Right.
The null-class reader is this radical third thing. There's someone who's Active reading doesn't just interpret a text, it fundamentally destabilizes it.
So it's almost like Schrodinger's cat, but for literature. His reading of the book exists in a superposition of all possible readings, right up until he stops.
Exactly. When he steps away, reality collapses into the reading that was not being performed.
Yeah.
His presence guarantees instability.
Which leads to that central revelation from the librarian.
She says the Codex is not a book that can be read. It is a book that reads. By looking for it, Casimir became an entry in the encyclopedia he wanted to study. The library was literally writing him into existence.
So his only way forward wasn't to memorize it, but to learn how to actively unread it. He has to learn something called the discipline of erasure.
Which is profoundly philosophical. It means reading a book so completely, so perfectly, that the sentences actually cease to exist. They just vanish from the page, leaving only the shape of their absence.
But you still have the knowledge. The structure of the story is still there in your mind, but the physical words are gone.
It's like the source code deletes itself after you download the program.
Wow. That's true mastery. And this training leads him to his escape, right? The ordeal of self-inscription.
Yes. He has to write his own entry in the Codex, but in a way that the text unwrites itself as he composes it. A self-referential paradox.
That's his key. Because the Codex isn't a prison. It only invites.
And if he can create a text that is both completely present and totally erased at the same time, he breaks the library's logic.
And in doing so, he gets the ultimate insight. The sources call it the reading.
It's the realization that the Codex isn't a book. It's the reading itself, the eternal ongoing act of consciousness engaging with existence. And all of us, all conscious beings, are components of the reading.
So that's the cosmic conclusion. Reality is a giant, unstable, self-writing encyclopedia, and we're the entries and the readers all at once.
Casimir Knoll just walks out of the library, a living impossibility, with a piece of the Codex in his memory.
That is a vast, dizzying idea. So how do we bring that infinite cosmic instability back down to Earth? This is where that first concept, pen ex bocast, transitions to the second one, a pen ex bono.
Which is defined as the residue that would not merge.
A perfect description.
We shift our focus completely. We go from infinite libraries to the quiet, subtle gaps in everyday human life. And this is where we meet Lila Venn, the woman who collected unfinished letters.
And not just lost letters or unsent drafts. She specifically collected letters that just stopped. Stopped because the writer didn't know what to say next. Mid-word, mid-sentence. That moment of hesitation just preserved on the page.
And she called the white space, the physical gaps left by these phrases, margin birds.
A beautiful term. It comes from medieval manuscripts, right?
It does. Scribes would draw these little illustrations in the margins, little whimsical things outside of the official sacred text. And Lila's letters are exactly that. They're the gaps, the uncertainty, the small truths that the official story can't contain.
And the insight here is so crucial, and it ties right back to the Codex. For her, incompletion wasn't failure, it was the meaning. She knew that to finish them, to force a conclusion, would be to destroy their value.
Their power was in being unfinished. And she was content with this, just observing, until the paradox flipped on her. She gets a mysterious message, a blue envelope, and the letter inside is, unlike everything else in her collection,
Finished.
completely finished. The one finished object in a collection defined by being unfinished.
And the woman who sent it, who Lila calls the residue, invites her to connect with others who also revere the unfinished. And this is how the shared collection of correspondences is formed.
And this is where the philosophy really blows up, beyond just text. The collection shows how the principles of that unstable academy show up in real, creative, tangible life. It's not about time paradoxes anymore. It's about paradoxes of intention.
Let's run through some of these collaborators because they just beautifully illustrate the scope. You have Maria Salazar in Buenos Aires, who collects unfinished buildings.
Right. And she doesn't see them as failed projects or bad investments. To her, they're prophecies. They're still becoming. The foundation is there, but the final shape is still just potential. And she makes this fascinating point that fire often unfinishes buildings, returning them to that state of possibility.
And then there's Celeste Fontaine, who collects unfinished recipes.
Yes, and not because she was missing an ingredient you could buy at the store. It's because one key ingredient literally does not exist yet. The dish is a yearning for a flavor the world can't provide.
That is the margin bird right there.
It is. And maybe the most poignant are Harold and Miriam Thwaite. Their collection was their own unfinished marriage.
They saw their union not as this fixed, completed state, but as a process, a perpetual becoming. The promise wasn't in arriving, but in the reaching.
That changes the whole perspective on commitment, doesn't it? It's about movement, not conclusion.
And finally, there's the child, whose collection is unfinished games. Games where the rules are always changing. The goal isn't to win or lose. The goal is to just keep playing.
And the goal of the shared collection is so critical here. They're moving from just being observers of incompletion to being active participants. They are creating the very thing they collect. They're honoring incompletion as a feature of life, not a bug.
Which brings us full circle, right back to the cosmic scale. The child's final game is called the game of margins. And it has one rule: keep the game going. Prevent it from ever collapsing into a conclusion.
Which perfectly mirrors the eternal, inconclusive nature of the reading from the first story. The only way to survive the library was to become the paradox, to refuse conclusion. The only way to succeed in the shared collection is to refuse the end state.
So what does this all mean for you as you're grappling with your own sources, your own systems? We've seen the infinite recursive codex and the intimate, scattered, shared collection, and the central discovery is the same in both.
That profound value resides in the unresolved, in the potential, in the gap.
It's a complete inversion of how we're taught to think. We're told to seek completion, fill every gap, resolve all uncertainty.
But these sources argue that resolution is the end of vitality.
So think about your own unfinished projects, the knowledge gaps you have, the questions you just can't answer. That motto from the Unstable Academy, we study what is not in order to understand what is not. It suddenly makes perfect sense. The margins are the key.
And that final, lasting message comes from the residue herself, from the woman in the blue envelope. She tells Lila, "The margins are infinite. The gaps can never be filled. The unfinished will always exceed any attempt to finish it. But the attempt matters. The reaching matters."
That reaching is where we find connection. And as the coda to the margin bird suggests, the finished are closed. They're complete. And therefore, they're functionally dead. They're static.
But the unfinished are open, incomplete, eternally becoming. They are vital. And so we challenge you to think about your own incompletion. Are those letters you never finished, those projects you haven't completed, are they really failures, or are they your most vital collection? The places where potential still lives.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the paradoxical architecture of knowledge and the beauty of the margins. Keep reading, keep questioning, and keep reaching into the gaps.